quite some time now. It's been some time now we've been partnering. I've been working with Education USA, and I want to say a big thank you to all members of staff of Education USA and those who make this possible. I want to welcome uh, everyone who has signed in for this webinar or for this session. This time, usually I work with principals and leaders of schools, but my degree is also in curriculum and teaching, and I would like to share some of my experiences with you in this area of effective classroom management. I've taught before I became an administrator. I have taught for several years, and I have an advanced degree in educational policy and leadership with a double major in curriculum and teaching from a reputable university. So that's who I am. Presently, I'm actually working from Ghana, where I live, and I also work in a school here. So I think we should just go ahead. What I want to say about this is that whenever I've given a workshop, even when I was being trained for classroom management, it wasn't just for one day, it wasn't for 45 minutes, it wasn't for 2 days, it was the whole term. The shortest I've had was 2 weeks, because this is a critical aspect of teaching. And because it's a critical aspect of teaching, we need enough time to really do this. When I was being trained for this, there were presentations in the morning. Then in the afternoon, we demonstrated. After listening to the lecture, we took time to prepare a class, and we were observed, we were evaluated, and we were given feedback. So what I'm going to do in the next 30, 45 minutes is just to give you tips on how to start looking at how you can improve yourselves in terms of managing your classes and being effective teacher. Don't forget, the goal of this is to be effective teachers. And classroom management is all about making sure that we are effective teachers. That is the goal. And I always ask, why do students come to school? Why do students come to us? They come to us to learn. And because they come to us to learn, most of the things, if not everything we do in the school, should be how to ensure that our students are learning and are learning effectively. And for our students to learn and learn effectively, our teachers have to teach and teach effectively. That is the first point I want to make as we start this webinar. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of you. I can't interact so much with you because when I give sessions, I would like some interactions from those I am working with, or those we are listening to each other, we're talking to each other, and I can see what is going on. We are talking about effective classroom management, and I titled it Effective Classroom Management, Professional Development for Teachers to Enhance Effective Teaching and Learning. If we teach effectively, we presuppose that our students will learn effectively. So for this, let me put it on, what is it called now? On slideshow. I don't know if you can see my slides.
I can see your slides.
Okay.
And if you need anybody to speak, actually, we can put them, if they raise up their hand, we can actually put them off the mic for them to talk to you as well.
Okay. Yeah, let me see if we can see what if we can be on
On
you can
slideshow.
see it now.
We can see it, but it's not on slideshow yet.
Yes, I'm trying.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
on? It's here now. Okay, thank you. So the objectives, as you always know, when we have a presentation like this, we want to articulate the objectives of what we are doing so that we know where we are headed, what we are trying to achieve. And the few objectives I've put up here is basically one, to help new teachers understand the dynamics of effective classroom management. And secondly, to help experienced teachers update their knowledge about effective classroom management. Thirdly, to help participants improve their knowledge of how to effectively manage a classroom in a world ruled by technology. You can't tell me now that you are not encountering issues with classroom management in terms of students bringing devices and using you yourself using technology in your class and dealing with those we consider digital natives. So I wanted to put something in that because you can't talk of classroom management nowadays without talking about technology in the classroom. So this is my outline of presentation. We have the introduction, summary of presentation, what, why, and how of effective classroom management. What is effective classroom management itself? What are the components of classroom management? What is effective classroom management? Why is effective classroom management important? How to implement effective classroom management. Here I'll be sharing some of my experiences having been in the classroom with adults, with children. There was a time when I used to go to Bere many years ago, about 30, 35 years ago. I used to go to a slum in Ibadan called Bere, and the children were not lettered, and I had to find ways of getting across to them. And that was where I started teaching students A for apple, B for boy. I had to bring samples of those items to show to the kids for them to have an idea of what these things are called in English. It was primarily a Yoruba community, and I was trying as much as possible to get across to them. So if I remember clearly, some of the things I did were included, were things like, how can I get the attention of the students? I didn't speak much of Yoruba and they didn't speak much of English. And I had to bring things to show to them that this is an apple, this is a pineapple, this banana. So things like that. I'll be sharing some of my experiences over the years teaching children and teaching adults. So I will also look at strategies for effective classroom management, strategies for managing a classroom with technology, dealing with challenges, and concluding with my last slide there. So what I am talking about, I'm sure is not strange to most of you. It's not new. Some of you may have had this before in your school. Even personally, you may have done some work here already. As I said, in my objective is to update your knowledge, is to also have a forum to start talking about this. I don't think we talk about effective classroom management enough in our schools. Maybe we do effective teaching, we do other things, but I don't think we have had enough time or enough energy or space to really spend time on what is effective classroom management. And I can assure you, an effective classroom manager, a teacher who is effective in managing his or her classroom, has a high chance of being an effective teacher, and students will learn. And it is defined as a dynamic process that teachers deploy to organize learning, pay attention to particular words. Dynamic process is not one-off thing. It takes time to grow. It takes time to develop. So it's a dynamic process that teachers deploy to organize learning spaces, establish routines, and build positive relationships so that effective learning can occur. Process, organized learning, spaces, routines, building positive relations among students, between students, and teachers, so that effective learning can occur. As I have said, the goal is to ensure that students are learning effectively. It is a skill that teachers develop and apply over time to create a conducive and appropriate environment over time. Sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. It takes time to grow. It takes time to develop, to create a conducive and productive learning environment. And the focus of effective classroom management are, conducive learning environment, engaging students for effective learning, preventing disruptive behaviors, managing destructive behavior when they occur. If you can't prevent them, then you have to learn to manage them. What are the components of effective classroom management? The first thing that we really have to look at is effective teaching. That's a key component of classroom management. And as I've said at the beginning, if you cannot manage your classroom effectively, you can't teach effectively. And as you know, teaching has three major phases. You have the planning stage, which is critical. They say the planning stage is the tool for effective classroom management. I don't know how much time we spend planning our classes, our lessons. You have the planning, you have lesson plan. Nowadays, technology is making it easy for us to even have a lesson plan. It doesn't mean that you just give the plan to technology to do, but you work with technology to do your lesson plan, because that is what will help you to manage your class. And it is a practical tool to prevent disorder. It translates the curriculum into clear daily goals for student learning. It helps to describe, to show the objectives, and it is a way to measure student achievement. And this structure keeps the teacher's focus. If you have a lesson plan, it will keep the teacher focused, it will keep the student focused, and when your lesson is well planned, 80% of your classroom management is achieved. Then you come to the second stage of our second phase of teaching, which is implementation. This is when you go to the classroom. And when you are in the classroom, the first thing they say you should do as soon as you step into the classroom is to become aware of your surrounding. Become aware of the students you are teaching. Look into the eyes of the students. Look into the faces of the students. Look into the body language of the students. What is that telling you? Look at the environment. Size up the environment. Is it conducive enough for you to teach, for students to learn? If the environment is not conducive, then classroom management will be a challenge. If the students are not comfortable, averagely comfortable. They can never be fully comfortable. If they're not comfortable enough, it's going to be difficult for you to get their attention, engage them. So the first thing you do as soon as you step into the classroom is to size up, evaluate what is going on in the class, identify students who seem, through their body language, seem to be having some challenges. See if you can address that before you even start teaching. So you read the room, become aware, size up the class, perceive students that are not feeling well, showing good signs. Then the next stage you'll be to teach. Follow your lesson plan carefully. Sometimes I will plan very well. Then when I get into the classroom, I realize that what I have planned for the classroom may not be appropriately executed. So sometimes I have to change the plans while in the class without changing the lesson. Sometimes I see something in the class, I can use that as a beginning. Then from there, I get into the curriculum, making sure that I'm teaching what I'm supposed to teach, making sure students are engaged. Then the last stage of effective teaching is evaluation. In evaluating what is going on, you want to know whether the students are learning or not. The importance of evaluation is to ensure that the students are learning and they are learning what they are supposed to learn. Then the next component is positive relationships. How do you create positive relationship in the classroom? The first thing will be see whether you can create a relationship of mutual trust, that the students will trust you to take care of them in the classroom, to teach what you are supposed to teach, and that you will trust the students to listen to you, to obey you, to follow what you are teaching. It is important for there to be trust. If there is no trust between students and teachers, learning is not going to take place. There should be mutual respect. Our culture sometimes seem to say, oh, it's a child, the respect should be vertical, that the respect should come from students only and not from teachers. It should be mutual. Respect the space of the students, respect the comportment of the students, and you comport yourself. Then the third component is clear expectation. There must be clearly defined expectation. You must, at first day of entering the classroom, you should say, these are the things I expect you to do in this class. This is how you expect you to behave in this class. There should be simple and clear rules. There should be routines that students are familiar with. And it's always good that at the beginning of the term, you sit down with the students and make rules and define expectations. When I was teaching, I didn't like students coming late to my classes. So I sat down with them and said, I don't like this. Or this is, how do we go about it? I said, okay, if I enter the classroom before you, that means for the duration of the classroom, you will remain standing. And students were like, okay, we agree. But when I started implementing it, they found it difficult to obey. But I said to them, come, we have an agreement. Because initially they thought that standing up throughout the classroom wasn't a big thing. Yeah, maybe not. But if you could imagine a student standing up during the lesson for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or something else. The other thing I said was, I shouldn't enter the classroom before you. So the first thing I did was to make sure I myself, I wasn't coming late to the classroom. So I'll stand by the class door before the next lesson ends, and I'm there and make sure that I'm in the classroom before other students. So there are some things we have to clearly define so that students can say, this is my teacher, these are the things my teachers like, these are the things my teachers don't like. There should be conducive learning environment. Arranging is physical learning spaces. Nowadays, they don't do the structural one facing the board. You can rearrange the seats depending on the kind of lesson you are teaching. If you are doing discussions, you can change the arrangement of the seating to make sure that the students are comfortable enough in the classroom. The classroom should be a safe environment. It should be a safe environment where students will not feel that their rights are being violated, that they are being maltreated, they are being abused. It should be a safe space. And make sure that the material you have chosen for the lesson is not too much for the period. You are not overloading the students. You are not using materials that are complicated. So why is effective classroom management important? We've talked about that. It helps to do effective teaching. And effective teaching will include implementing the curriculum, effective use of educational resources, maximizing positive behavior, minimizing disruptive behavior. And effective learning will impact how students learn, change in students' behavior. When students are learning, you see their behavior is changing. It impacts how students feel in the classroom, produces positive outcomes. It is important. So we will go now. How to implement effective classroom management, strategies for effective classroom management. This is very important. Know your students. Know your students' background, context, and behavior. And the teacher must be familiar with the life experiences of the students. We must know the actual context in which teaching and learning take place. We need to understand the world of the students, including the ways in which their families, friends, peers, youth culture, and morals, as well as social pressure, school life, policies, economies, religion, media, art, music, and other realities impact the life of the students, our students. There are a lot of things happening now. Our students are going through a lot of challenges. It's good that we know what they are dealing with in their contexts. And use materials from their context when you are teaching. You cannot be teaching in a slum and be using materials from high-class societies, all of that. Use materials that you know the students are familiar with. They say you go from the known to the unknown. Use that even if you are going to move to another context. Make sure that you understand the context of your students, what they are dealing with, what they are struggling with, how they learn. Know how your students learn, what motivates them, how to engage them, how to include them in your planning, in your teaching. When I coached high school soccer or high school football, even from JHS 1, JHS 2. And those days I had only one very good player. And the name was Olu. And the simple plan was get the ball to Olu. Everything we will do. But every time our opponent realized that Oluwa was our best player, they marked him out. They made sure they marked him. So during the halftime, I'll call a meeting and say, guys, Olu, what can you do to maneuver these things that they are doing to prevent us from scoring? Sometimes Olu will say to me, sir, move me to the side. Instead of leaving me as a center forward, move me to the side. I'll be able to dribble the person marking that side. It's not so strong. So I'll move him there. And sometimes it worked out well. Nowadays, they say student voices must be heard. Student voices must be heard, especially things that have to do with their learning. How do they learn? So you have to pay attention to how your students learn, to be an effective teacher to be an effective classroom manager. Be an effective teacher. Be well prepared. You cannot over-prepare for a class. Be well prepared before you go into a classroom. Plan. Plan very well. Plan everything. I grew up being a stammerer, but over the years, I have overcome most of my stammering, except in some situations. So whenever I was preparing for my class, I would rehearse in my room, take time, everything I would say, I would try to rehearse that, articulate it, see how it comes out. So know the material is very important. Be well prepared, know the material, supervise actively. They say one way of effective supervision in the classroom is that you move around. Sometimes you need to call a student's attention. You go close. Sometimes you may even, hold the student by the hand and say, "Get up here, move there." But my experience too, sometimes some people can be effective teachers without even moving around the classroom. But if you are teaching a large classroom, there's nothing you can do than to move around. I remember when I was in secondary school many, many years, over 40 years ago, we had an old man who taught us literature, Mr. Bassi. He was old and he had a problem with his leg. He didn't move around. But he was a very, very effective teacher because wherever he stood, he could change his voice, he could enunciate, he could raise his voice, he could shout, he could say, "Hey, you!" He spoke American English. And maybe that was one of the things that really kept us captivated. He spoke. But he was very effective because he had control. We listened. And what I'm saying basically is, what is the best way to make sure you are supervising the classroom? You employ that to make sure you are teaching. Use positive reinforcement. They say this all the time. When a student does something good, you praise the students. It's always good to give a feedback. And they say, even for younger students, it's very important. Sometimes some students make some stars, pin some stars on them, stars of the week, stars of the class. There has to be some form of reinforcement to reinforce good behaviors. Use your body language and voice effectively. There are times you may need to raise your voice. There are times you may not need to raise your voice. Times you need to enunciate. There are times you need to use your eyes. There are times you need to use your hand. There are times you need to use your head. Use that to communicate and communicate effectively. And make sure that your body language is communicating and communicating effectively. Be a model student. I didn't say model teacher, I say a model student. A good teacher is somebody who learns. Students should learn from you how to be good students, to be good, to learn, to listen, to engage. Adapt, be flexible. Look at this here. At the beginning, I said, when you enter a classroom, size up the class first and see what works in this class. What is going to work? What works in 1A may not work in 1B. What works in 1C may not work in 2A. But the most important thing is, are the students learning? Are you teaching effectively? Are you engaging them? So adapt, be flexible, encourage collaborative teaching and learning. You can bring your colleague to class. Both of you can teach a class, and especially if your colleague is better than you in a particular topic, bring the teacher to the classroom. Say, "Please come and teach this," or you teach the class together. That is more common in the university, but we can bring it to secondary school, to even primary school. I know some primary schools, they have more than one teacher in the classroom. They have special teachers for English, for math. Yeah, that's encouraging. Encourage group activities. Demonstrate more than talking. Show more than just talking and talking. How to implement effective classroom management. Encourage your school to have a school-wide, clear, well-defined disciplinary policy. This is critical. And make sure that you align with your school's disciplinary policy, because sometimes when it comes to students misbehaving, sometimes we decide to discipline the students against the policies of the school. If you are not in agreement with the policies of the school, you bring it up with the management and you can discuss it. And if it's not working, for me, it's always good to say, no, I may not be able to deal with this. It's important that the school has a clear, well-defined disciplinary policy, and it has to be consistent. What you do for one child, you do for the other child. Teach students how to behave. When I taught you, I didn't allow students to use foul language. If you use foul language, I will say, no, that's not acceptable. And I will explain why it's not acceptable. Meet with students to reflect on and evaluate learning activities and behaviors. That's why you have the evaluation at the end. Sometimes you say to them, come, this is that we did. Did you enjoy this activity or not? Nowadays, they talk about project-based learning, activity-based learning, group activities. All these things are things we need to consider. Ask colleagues and students to evaluate your classroom management skills. This is critical. Create and post simple, clear rules and display them. And make sure you are following some of those rules you people have agreed on in your classroom. Demonstrate that you care for every student, no matter who the student is, either from rich home or poor home. Try as much as possible to see every child in your classroom as yours and treat every child equally. Be fair and just in every situation. Set routines, assign duties, roles. That one is very common. Most schools do that, and most teachers will do that. And some teachers will even go ahead and assign more roles. Duster keeper, when I'm coming to your class, this person is responsible for coming to collect assignment books here and there. It's good I will pay attention to that. Set the learning space for success. Arrange the seats properly. If you are going to use the conference method of arrangement, if you are going to use the solid method of rows, row by row, you do that. But make sure that whichever arrangement you are using is helping you to engage the student effectively. Students are engaged. And we can't overemphasize the importance of instructional materials. Are very, very important, and they help a lot in classroom management. Now, managing classrooms with technology. This is the elephant in the room. Nowadays, students come with all kinds of things. The phone, the simple phone you think they are carrying, they have a lot of access to the internet. So how do you manage that? The first thing is you have to understand that technology is important nowadays. It helps with classroom management. It supports behavior management, enhances students' engagement, streamlines administrative tasks, makes teaching more fun. If you have smart boards in your classroom, you can always open up a website and say, okay, this teaching Aga Khan website for math. There's a math problem being solved, and that you can open it. That you will be shocked how much students will be engaged in that, watching how somebody on the internet is solving a particular problem. It's very important. We can't avoid that nowadays, and see how we can integrate that into our classroom management, because it helps to get the attention of the students. It provides quick statistical analysis. If you are debating in the classroom and you're not sure, you can quickly go to the internet and say, this is what is it, even in definition of words. use of words. Quickly go to the internet. It's important. But the school must establish a use policy and manage devices to reduce distraction, prevent misuse, to help you with classroom management. We continue. Expectations and class routines must be simple, clear in the use of technology in the classroom. Use online platforms for collaboration, for making rules, updating rules, adapting to new challenges. It helps to use data-driven decision-making, helps to make decisions, provides insight into students' performances. It helps with engagement and collaboration. Internet is always there. Students want to see what is there. They want to go to different apps, use different apps to create things that can be very encouraging. And assignments should revolve around that. Being able to use an app to do some of the assignments, as long as you know that they are using the apps and they are going to probably do that. But you can go to this, and summarize what this app is saying about this, that. It encourages collaboration all the time. You can bring two students together and say, okay, work on this. Go to this website and work on this. See what they are saying. Listen to what they are saying and try to repeat what they are saying. What is the new thing you are learning from that website? It's important. Challenges of classroom management. One of the challenges is that some schools don't have disciplinary policies or are inconsistent in their disciplinary policies. They seem to have different policies for different students. Some no school policy on the use of technology in the classroom. It has to be clear. Now, poor training of teachers for classroom management. I don't know how many schools have spent time to say, we are going to spend this holiday for 2 weeks, 1 week, to do classroom management development. No systematic and consistent supervision of teachers. Teachers don't get supervised properly. On the part of teachers do not take classroom management seriously. There's mismanagement of time. They don't know how to manage their time when they're in the classroom. There's disrespect of students. There's consistent destructive behavior in the classroom. Sometimes some students are difficult to manage, and sometimes our teachers don't have the skills to manage destructive behavior. It's a challenge in the classroom. Summary. Proper planning and implementation of lessons are critical to classroom management. Classroom management skills teachers use to create a positive, organized, productive learning environment. Classroom management is critical to effective teaching and learning. It is a skill that can be learned over time. What are the elements? Clear expectation, positive relationship, creative positive environment, effective teaching. Technology can help with the classroom management if there is clear school policy, 2, clear rules for use of technology in the classroom. What are the takeaways? Plan effectively. Know that effective classroom management is critical to effective teaching and learning. Integrate subjects, technology, and students in teaching. Know that supervision can build classroom management skills. And you can use classroom observation. Ask your school leader, your principal, vice principals to come and observe your classrooms and evaluate you on your classroom management skills to help you know whether you are managing your classrooms effectively or not. You can ask your colleagues to evaluate you. You can ask your students to evaluate you. It has been very helpful for me whenever I have asked students to evaluate me. Sometimes they point to things that I'm not really paying attention to, and sometimes start paying attention to that. Evaluate yourself. Record yourself and play back. Teach a class and record yourself and play back. You might be shocked what you might observe merely recording yourself and playing it back to yourself. Encourage your schools to develop policies to help with classroom management. Learn new and effective ways of engaging and teaching students, especially students of nowadays. In the use of technology, use cooperative learning, group activities, use project-based teaching, learning, new ways of engaging our students who seem to be a bit distracted nowadays, maybe more distracted. There are a lot of resources online that we can use for that.